Hello, I'm Annie Mazes, and I am with Hachette Book Group. Today I will be focusing on our Workman titles, but before I kick off our titles, a few points to note. This is a very important link to our Edelweiss catalog. It is case sensitive, so please make note of that. It will take you to all the books that we're talking about today. It should be posted in the chat periodically. And at the end of this, you will all receive the recording of this presentation and the link and a certificate of participation, so you do not need to really remember too much today. We'll make it easy for you. One other thing I would like to say is that I have been the chair of this amazing committee for 6 years, and I am stepping down at the end of 2022. It's been a true honor working with all these wonderful humans. I will continue to do so, just not as chair. Lainey Mays from HarperCollins and Emily Day from MacMillan are going to be co-chairing going forward. They're amazing. You know them, you love them. It's going to be magic. But thank you all for following us along on these virtual buzzes over the last few years, being part of all of our conference events. It is a real pleasure working with my colleagues and with librarian and library workers. All right, I've taken enough of your time. Moving on. I am Annie Mazes, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I will be focusing on our Workman Publishing section of Hachette Book Group today. First up, we have End Papers. This is an accessible, character-driven story set in 2003 New York City about a genderqueer book conservator who feels trapped by her gender presentation, her ill-fitting relationship, and her artistic block. She discovers a decades-old hidden queer love letter and becomes obsessed with tracking down the author. This is for fans of Detransition Baby, Tell the Wolves I'm Home, or The Immortalists. So I completely love The Mountains Sing. Probably talk your ear off about it at some point. Wen Fan Kwei Mai's next book is Dust Child. I am very excited about this as well. It is just as poetic and beautiful as her writing in The Mountains Sing. It is about an American GI, 2 Vietnamese bar girls, and an Ameri-Asian man who are forced to make decisions during the Vietnam War that echo through the rest of their lives. Silver Alert is by beloved Southern author Lee Smith. It's a funny, endearing novel about a man who is aging and doesn't really want to acknowledge that, so he takes off on one last road trip with his ailing wife's manicurist, who has secrets of her own, but it's a really lovely story about hope and this friendship that develops. I Am Still With You. This is by a winner of the prestigious Wyndham Campbell Prize, Emmanuel Iduma. He tells the story of his return to Nigeria, where he grew up after living in New York City for many years. He is trying to figure out the fate of his uncle Emmanuel, his namesake, who disappeared in the Nigerian Civil War in the 1960s. This is equal part memoir, national history, political reckoning. It's a profoundly personal story of collective loss and making peace with the unknown. On the Curry Trail, beloved and award-winning cookbook author, instructor, wonder, Raghavan Iyer explores the origins of curry across the world. There are 50 recipes. There are beautiful illustrations throughout, as noted right there. Forger, I'm a big fan of this memoir. Michelle Dowd grew up in California in a cult that was started by her grandfather. They were an end of the world cult, and so she was taught to forage. So every chapter opens with information about one plant that and how you can survive on it and how it can help you if you're trapped in the wilderness. But this is a searing coming of age story and a meditation on the ways that we can understand nature and how that can lead to freedom and joy. Excuse me. Holistic Cancer Care. Chankal Kabera, a medical herbologist with a specialty in integrative oncology, provides an in-depth guide to practical, solution-focused strategies for using herbal medicines and other natural therapies to complete conventional cancer treatment. This isn't going to end well as a memoir by Big Fish author Daniel Wallace. This is his first foray into nonfiction as he tries to come to terms with the life and death of his multi-talented longtime friend and brother-in-law, who was his biggest hero and inspiration, who committed suicide at 47. And finally, our brave foremothers, inspired by her own foremothers' legacies and the friendships formed throughout their life, Rosella Kennedy centers and celebrates the story of 100 Black, Brown, Asian, and Indigenous women, both famous and little known, who changed the course of U.S. history. That is it from me. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Randy Chan, Director of Channel Marketing at HTP Books, which is Harlequin Trade Publishing, and my email address is randy.chan@harpercollins.com. I'm starting with Codename Sapphire by Pam Jenoff on the next slide. And Pam is the author of The Lost Girls of Paris and The Orphan's Tale, all World War II novels based on true stories of strong, inspiring women. Codename Sapphire is about two cousins, one of whom joins the Sapphire Line to help evacuate airmen out of Nazi-occupied Europe. But when things go wrong, one of the cousins tries to save her family by hijacking the train that is taking them to Auschwitz. So Pam Jenoff used to work at the Pentagon and was also a diplomat for the State Department handling Holocaust issues in Poland. So she's the real deal in terms of research and unearthing heart-pounding stories from the war that deserve to be told in novel form. And the next book is It's One of Us by J.T. Allison. Pound for pound, I think J.T. is as great as Lisa Unger, Karen Slaughter, Ruth Ware. And this new thriller is about a couple who gets a visit from the police one night. And the police say their son is the prime suspect in a murder investigation. But the couple shrugs it off. It's all a mistake because they don't have a son. So surely there's a mix-up, but not really. And thus begins a tale of secrets uncovered. This is about DNA and all the truths behind the facade of a marriage. And it's going to make waves when it comes out. The next book is Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher. And really all I have to say is Colleen Hoover, but I will say more. And that is that Colleen Hoover is very, very close with the author Taryn Fisher, who we publish on our Graydon House list. And Taryn wrote the thriller The Wives a few years back. Well, it turns out that Taryn and Colleen collaborated on 3 stories back in 2017, which was self-published at the time. So for the first time now, this book is going to be in print. And I know that you know that Colleen Hoover fans will buy everything to satisfy their appetite. Never Never asks the question, what would you want to remember if you lost all the memories of someone you love? And it follows 2 high school sweethearts who can't remember their past, not their first kiss, their first fight, nothing. They try desperately to uncover who they used to be, but it turns out some secrets are better off forgotten. This is a suspense-filled romantic thriller and it has an announced first printing of 1 million copies. So here's to a future bestseller. On to Black Candle Women by Diane Marie Brown. Some of you may know this already, but in the summer of 2020, we put out a call for unagented Black writers to submit their manuscripts to us. It was our way to break down some traditional barriers of getting published. Out of that call, we received hundreds of manuscripts. We acquired a few outstanding books. One of those books is called Someday Maybe by Ani Noah Benelli, just published and is this month's Good Morning America book club pick. And the second novel we acquired from that open call is Black Candle Women by Diane Marie Brown. This is about 4 generations of women living under one roof, and the family is cursed because everyone they fall in love with dies. And it has something to do with a voodoo sorceress from New Orleans in the 1950s. It's practical magic meets Brit Bennett, and it's so good. And finally, we have The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner, who wrote The Lost Apothecary. And I'm here to tell you her follow-up is amazing. The London Seance Society is set in the 1800s, Paris and London. It follows Vaudeline Delaire, a French medium whose special skill is to solve homicides through seances. She conjures up the spirit of the murder victims to solve the crime. And then she's summoned to London to help the London Seance Society with a high-profile murder. But soon she becomes entangled in a dangerous web of crime and murder herself. This is gothic, it's spellbinding, you will love it. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and thanks also to Annie for organizing all of this.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'll just jump right in. First, we have hold on. Sorry about that. My apartment got really loud for a minute. First up, we have The Reunion by Kayla Olson. As the star of the popular teen drama Girl on the Verge, Liv Latimer spent her adolescence on screen, but after multiple personal tragedies, she wanted nothing more than to retreat, living a mostly normal life. But 20 years after the show's premiere, the cast is invited back for a reunion special. On set, Liv discovers that her on-screen love interest and off-screen former best friend Ransom has only improved with age, and their chemistry is still there. But with new rivalries among the cast emerging and the specter of a reboot shadowing their shoot, Liv questions whether returning to the past is what she really needs to finally get her own happy ending. Charming and heartwarming, The Reunion is perfect for fans of Christina Lauren and Sally Thorne. Next. From Janice Hallett, author of The Appeal, comes the Twyford Code. 40 years ago, Smithy found a copy of a famous children's book by disgraced author Edith Twyford, its margins full of strange annotations. When he showed it to his English teacher, Mrs. Isles, she believed that it was part of a secret code that ran through all of Twyford's novels. And when Miss Isles disappears on a class field trip, Smithy becomes convinced that she had been right. 40 years later, an adult Smithy, freshly out of jail, decides to investigate the mystery that has haunted him for decades. In a series of voice recordings on an old iPhone, Smithy alternates between visiting the people of his childhood and looking back on the events that later landed him in prison. It soon becomes clear that Edith Twyford wasn't just a forgotten writer of children's stories, and her code holds a great secret, one that Smithy might just have the key to. Next. This is Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall. For fans of Kristen Hanna and Jennifer Chiaverini, this powerful debut follows three women whose lives are bound together by a long-lost letter, a mother's love, and a secret network of women fighting for the right to choose, inspired by true stories. Looking for Jane is told in multiple timelines, readers bouncing between the 1970s, the 1980s, and modern days, as three women face impossible circumstances and whose choices all lead them to the same secret underground abortion network known only by its whispered code name, Jane. Next. Alex has all but given up on her dreams of becoming a published author when she receives a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, attend an exclusive month-long writing retreat at the estate of feminist horror writer Rosa Vallow. But when the attendees arrive, Rosa drops a bombshell. They must all complete an entire novel from scratch during the next month, and the author of the best one will receive a life-changing 7-figure publishing deal. Determined to win this seemingly impossible contest, Alex buckles down and tries to ignore the strange happenings at the estate. But when one of the writers vanishes during a snowstorm, Alex realizes that things aren't just strange, they're sinister. With the clock running out, she's desperate to uncover the truth and save herself. A claustrophobic and propulsive thriller, The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz is an unputdownable debut novel from a compelling new talent. Next. This is The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. Every summer for the past 10 years, 6 awestruck bakers have descended upon the grounds of Grafton, an imposing Vermont estate that is not only the filming site for the popular show Bake Week, but also the childhood home of the show's famous host, celebrated baker Betsy Martin. Hailed as America's grandmother, in reality, Betsy is a stern perfectionist who's always gotten her way with a smile, but this year something is off. As the baking competition commences, things begin to go awry. At first, it's merely sabotage. Sugar replaced with salt, a burner turned too high. But when a body is discovered, everyone is a suspect. A delicious combination of Clue and the Great British Bake Off, as Jan Ivanovich called it, this brilliant debut will keep you reading late into the night. Lastly, from Jeanette Walls, the #1 New York Times bestselling author of The Glass Castle, comes Hang the Moon, a riveting novel about the indomitable young woman in Virginia during Prohibition. Sally Kincaid is the daughter of the biggest man in a small town, the charismatic Duke. Born at the turn of the 20th century into a life of comfort and privilege, Sally remembers little about her mother, other than she died during a violent argument with her father. By the time she's 8, the Duke is remarried and has a son named Eddie. After an accident involving her stepbrother, Sally is cast out. 9 years later, she returns, determined to reclaim her place, a goal that's a lot more complicated than she expected as she enters a world full of conflict and lawlessness. Sally must confront the secrets and scandals that hide in the shadows of the big house, navigate factions in the family and town, and finally come into her own as a bold, sometimes reckless bootlegger. Next. That's everything for me. I will drop all of these links into the chat. Thank you again so much for being here, and enjoy the rest of our great presentations.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks to everyone for joining us here today. My name is Chris Vicari of Union Square and Company with one quick recap of a fall 22 title. Next slide, please. It's called You Don't Know What War Is, The Diary of a Young Girl from Ukraine by 12-year-old Yeva Skalietska, who when Russia invaded Ukraine, fled the country full of bombings and violence with her family. She started to write a diary, the entries of which are here. Library Journal just said her writing is quick-paced, empathetic, and sympathetic reading for adults and strong crossover appeal for YA readers. Next slide, please. It is ultimately a hopeful memoir by a brave young woman who now lives in Dublin, Ireland. Next slide is getting into nonfiction on brand. Eliza Licht, author of Leave Your Mark, knows that success relies heavily on the power of your personal brand. And with more people than ever working for themselves, one must consider, how do you get people to speak positively about you when you're not in the room? Eliza will share her personal journey and help you feel seen. The next slide here shows some advanced praise we've received for the book. There's something for everyone here, whether looking to pivot in your career, start a company, or re-enter the workforce. Next slide is Good Catch. To chef, author, and spearfisher Valentine Thomas, spearfishing is a sustainable way to harvest seafood and provide a unique way to understand your food in this gorgeous cookbook called Good Catch. Next slide, please. She provides not only 75 seafood recipes, but takes reader all over the world, combining message and memoir, cookbook, and culinary adventure. Check out her Instagram at Valentine Thomas and be among her 300,000 plus followers. Next slide, please. We dig in with some fiction. And on the next slide, we kick it off with The Daughters of Madurai, a debut from Rashri Variar. It's the story of two women. One, a poor young mother in Madurai, India, who in 1992 is told she is useless if she can't produce a son, or worse, if she bears daughters. They let her keep her first baby girl, but the rest are taken away when born and murdered. Her story is juxtaposed with that of another woman in Australia 2019 who has a secret she's been keeping from her parents, but when she joins them on a trip to Madurai, the decision changes her life forever. This novel not only educates about the horrible global issue of female infanticide, but it is also a universal story about the power of love in overcoming all obstacles. Think of it for readers of Pachinko or The Henna Artist. Next slide is A Shadow Crown, book 2 in the Broken Blade series. Booklist gave Broken Blade book 1 a starred review. I'll say it offers a lot of what a fantasy reader is looking for: the dark world of magic, a broken world corrupted by greed, and an enemies to lovers romance. Next slide, please. Book Talk loves this book. 12 book talkers teamed up to reveal the title, which, yes, is A Shadow Crown. In this book, our lead character, the assassin named Kira, navigates her own grief about how she lost the woman she loved, all she plots against the merciless king that holds her kingdom hostage. Next slide is Not So Perfect Strangers. It's an homage to Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, about two women from different neighborhoods who discover each has a husband she'd be better off without. They want to help each other out of these marriages, but they have different ideas about what that means, putting them on a collision course to a sinister conclusion. It is written by L.S. Stratton, a former finalist for the NAACP Image Award in literary fiction. Next is Truly, Darkly, Deeply, a novel told from the point of view of Sophie, a young girl in London who receives a letter from prison. The letter is from a man named Maddie Melgren, who a few years ago was a great guy, the one who befriended Sophie and her mom. But then young women in town started to be killed, and Sophie began to worry that Maddie may be the killer. Next slide, please, with some praise for this book. Maddie Melgren has always said he was innocent, but is he telling the truth? You'll just have to read to find out. Next slide, please. Hotel 21. Meet Noelle, a nice hotel housekeeper, or so she'd have you think. As she starts at her 21st hotel, she's going to do the huge, impress the staff, steal from customers, and leave for the next job before anyone suspects anything. Except she's not high-tech robbing jewels here. She steals a lipstick here, a hair clip there, so small that you might not even notice. The problem at Hotel 21, though, is her new colleagues are nice women with normal lives, the kind of lives she has never known. They make her wonder what it might be like to have real friends. But that's not if her old habits come back to haunt her. I liked Hotel 21 on page 1. Lastly, we have The Partisan, a debut by Patrick Worrell, mainly set in 1960s Cold War, but with flashbacks to World War II, if you want to plug in your John le Carré fans. We open in London, where a prodigy chess player named Michael falls in love at a tournament with a Russian woman who is a chess master. They don't know it. Next slide, please. But because of some connections, they are being shadowed by resistance fighters, naval intelligence, and members of the Politburo, hunting down the world's most dangerous people, all which led author Lee Child to say, quote, "It's up there with the best in the genre." Next slide, please, because those are the books, and that's the way it is today, November 30th, 2022. Call me for ARCs or look on Edelweiss and NetGalley. Lovely to see you all again. Now here is our next speaker.
Hello, everybody. I'm Golda from Norton, and here's all my contact info. Next slide. So you all know this, books make great gifts. For example, I just gave a copy of King Arthur Baking School to one of my friends, so I hope that she will make me some treats. Next slide. Once upon a Tome, Oliver Darkshire writes about working for the oldest antiquarian bookstore in the world, Sotheran's in London. This is Bill Bryson meets David Sedaris in a bookshop, and it's a must-read for those who love the book world. Next slide. In the real work, best-selling author and New Yorker writer Adam Gopnik embarks on a creative inquiry into the questions, how do we learn a new skill, and why do we relentlessly seek to better ourselves? Next slide. Joe Milan Jr. makes his debut with the novel The All-American. In rural Washington State, Bucky, a Korean-American high school senior, trains hard to pursue his dream of playing college football. But when the US government deports him to South Korea, he finds himself alone in a country where he can't speak the language, is conscripted to the army, and is obligated to pay off the debts of his long-missing biological father. Bucky must battle the confusing bureaucracy in order to find his way home. Next slide. Mary D. Herder Norton was one of the founders of our company, and her translation of Letters to a Young Poet remains the most popular translation of the work. To celebrate Norton's centenary in 2023, we are reissuing this classic with an introduction by Damien Searles and an afterword by Norton's current president, Julia Reedhead. This lovely new edition brings Rilke's enduring wisdom about life, love, and art to a new generation in the translation that first introduced him to the English-speaking world. Next slide. So this is really exciting. Such Kindness is the new novel by Andre Dubus III, the best-selling author of House of Sand and Fog, Townie, and more. The book is heartbreaking and philosophical, grim but with glimmers of hope, and a cast of characters that we root for against all odds. We just got a great quote from Ann Patchett, who called it a gripping and transformational journey towards kindness in a tremendously moving novel. Next slide. And then on a lighter note, we have Girlfriend on Mars by Deborah Willis that skewers billionaire-funded space travel in a love story of interplanetary proportions. Amber is moving to Mars, or at least she will be if she can beat out reality TV contestants from around the world who are competing for 2 seats on the first human-led mission to Mars, sponsored by billionaire Jeff Task. Kevin, Amber's boyfriend of 14 years, is left behind to tend their hydroponic weed business in their overpriced Vancouver basement apartment. Kevin has to watch the show to find out why the love of his life is so determined to leave the planet with somebody else. Next slide. Best-selling novelist T.C. Boyle is coming to Norton's Live Right imprint with his new novel Blue Skies. This compulsive family drama is a caricature of materialist American society that doubles as a warning about our planet's future. Blue Skies is wicked but thought-provoking and will appeal to readers of Kevin Wilson or watchers of Succession, Shameless, and other dramedies centered on dysfunctional families. Next slide. Night Flowers, coming from Tin House, features a librarian character. In this compelling mystery, a librarian with a focus on genealogy works with a detective to solve the case of a young woman and 2 children found in the Gila National Forest 30 years earlier. With only fragments from dusty case files and a witness who doesn't want to remember, This unlikely duo is determined to uncover the truth behind the murders. And with their help, the woman in the woods is finally able to tell her own story. I can't wait to read this, and we should have print and digital arcs soon. Next slide. Claire Fuller is one of Tin House's best-selling authors and one of my favorites. And I just have to share my amazement that this cover image is actually a painting and not a digitally altered photograph. The Memory of Animals is an ambitious novel set during a pandemic, but not the COVID pandemic. If you liked Claire's first book, Our Endless Numbered Days, you definitely need to pick up this one. There's also octopus content for all of you Remarkably Bright Creatures fans, but this is definitely more dystopian than that book. Next slide. So there are always way more books in a season than I can present, so I hope you'll check out our catalogs on Edelweiss, and I hope you'll join us in celebrating Norton's 100th anniversary next year. I'm planning some special giveaways at ALA Annual and in the library newsletter. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a good rest of the week.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon Schell from Independent Publishers Group IPG. So thanks for tuning in, and I'm happy to bring you some really fun titles from our publishers. So next slide. Our first title is Anna May Wong, From Laundryman's Daughter to Hollywood Legend. And this is by Chicago Review Press, again, one of our top shelf IPG lead titles for the season. A biography that brings attention to the life of a groundbreaking Asian actress who faced prejudices in her time, much like Asian actors today speak out about facing in Hollywood. Working Title Films has this book under option for a feature film with Gemma Chan formally attached to the project. Anna May Wong remains one of Hollywood's best-known Chinese-American actors. Between 1919 and 1960, Anna May Wong starred in over 50 movies billing with stars like Douglas Fairbanks Sr., Marlene Dietrich, Joan Crawford, Ramon Navarro. Her life, though, is the prototypical story of an immigrant's difficult path through the prejudices of American culture. Born in Los Angeles in 1905, she was the second daughter of 7 children born to a laundryman and his wife. Childhood experience fueled her fascination with Hollywood, and by 1919, she secured a small part in her first film, The Red Lantern, and she continued to act up until her death. Her most famous film roles were in The Toll of the Sea, Peter Pan, The Thief of Baghdad, Old San Francisco, and Shanghai Press. But discrimination against Asiana in both the film industry and society was commonplace. And when it came time to make a film version of Pearl Buck's The Good Earth, she was passed over for the Chinese female lead role, which was ultimately given to the white actor Louise Rainier. In a narrative that recalls the pathos of life in Los Angeles's Chinese neighborhoods and the glamour of Hollywood's pleasure palaces, Graham Russell Gale Hodges recovers the life of a Hollywood legend. Next slide. Our next title is The Vegetarian Reset, 75 low-carb, plant-forward recipes from around the world. And this is brought to us by the Collective Book Studio. This book celebrates a lifestyle where a foodie sensibility intersects with healthy eating. It solves the never-ending dilemma that all plant-based eaters face. Is life fun when you eat salad every day? Or is it worth it to let your health take a backseat to enjoy a big bowl of rice or pasta without enough protein? In her debut cookbook, Vasudha Viswanath takes readers on a little trip around the world, drawing inspiration from an array of traditional and global cuisines that are rich in whole foods like vegetables, legumes, and healthy fats. Seasonal, vibrant recipes are moderately low carb and put vegetables front and center, and they're also gluten-free. Learn to bake healthy bread from scratch, make paella out of cauliflower rice, transform paneer into gnocchi, and sweeten brownies with dates. Whether you already follow a low-carb lifestyle or simply want to add more healthy dishes into your rotation, The Vegetarian Reset will delight and inspire vegetarians, vegans, and omnivores alike to eat well, fully nourish, and reset your body. Next slide. The next title is called The Bleeding, and this is brought to us by Orenda Books. This is a #1 bestseller in France, and the author, the Queen of Noir, Joanna Gustafsson, returns with a spellbinding, dazzlingly dark Gothic thriller that swings from Belle Epoque France to 21st century Quebec, with an extraordinary mystery at its heart. First in a bewitching new series. So we're excited about that. 3 women, 3 eras, and 1 extraordinary mystery. 1899 Belle Epoque, Paris. Lucienne's 2 daughters are believed dead when her mansion burns to the ground, but she is certain that her daughters are still alive and embarks on a journey into the depths of the spiritualist community to find them. 1949, post-war Quebec. Teenager Lena's father has died in the French Resistance, and as she struggles to fit in at school, her mother introduces her to an elderly woman at the asylum where she works, changing Lena's life in the darkest way imaginable. 2002, Quebec. A former school teacher is accused of brutally stabbing her husband, a famous university professor, to death. Detective Maxine Grant, who has recently lost her own husband and is parenting a teenager and a new baby single-handedly, takes on the investigation. Under enormous personal pressure, Maxine makes a series of macabre discoveries that link directly to historical cases involving black magic and murder, secret societies, and spiritism, and women at breaking point who will stop at nothing to protect the ones that they love. Next slide. This title, This is Vegan Propaganda and Other Lies the Meat Industry Tells You. This is by Ed Winters, brought to us by Vermilion Books. And every time we eat, we have the power to radically transform the world we live in. Our choices can help alleviate the most pressing issues we face today: the climate crisis, infectious and chronic diseases, human exploitation, and of course, non-human exploitation. Undeniably, these issues can be uncomfortable to learn about, but the benefits of doing so cannot be overstated. It is quite literally a matter of life and death. Through exploring the major ways that our current system of animal farming affects the world around us, as well as the cultural and psychological factors that drive our own behaviors, This is Vegan Propaganda answers the pressing question, is there a better way? Whether you are a vegan already or curious to learn more, this book will show you the other side of the story that has been hidden for far too long. Based on years of research and conversations with slaughterhouse workers and farmers to animal rights philosophers, environmentalists, and everyday consumers, vegan educator and public speaker Ed Winters will give you the knowledge to understand the true scale and enormity of the issues at stake. This is Vegan Propaganda is the empowering and groundbreaking book on veganism that everyone, vegan and skeptic alike, needs to read. Next slide.
Sharon, I'm going to have to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Your
okay.
time is up. But thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda Casterly. Thank you for joining us today to hear about new books. These are the top titles for the beginning of the new year from Blackstone Publishing. First up, we have Courage Under Fire, Under Siege and Outnumbered 58-1 on January 6th by Stephen A. Sund. Courage Under Fire is United States Capitol Police Chief Stephen A. Sund's gripping personal story that takes readers inside the events leading up to the January 6th attack and provides a detailed and harrowing minute-by-minute account. Draws upon never-released audio recordings, key documents, and government records. There's confirmed upcoming media coverage for the book with Morning Joe Live on MSNBC, The Lead with Jake Tapper on CNN, The Today Show on NBC, and more. And the New York Times will be doing a review or possibly an interview with Chief Sund. The book is really as apolitical as possible. Given the subject matter, it really reads more like a thriller than a political book. And we have a couple of fantastic thrillers out on YouTube that are really chilling and give you a great sense of the drama of the book. And that one is releasing January 3rd. Next, we have The Keeper of Stories by Sally Page. Everyone has a story to tell, but does Janice have the courage to unlock her own? This is a charming, uplifting debut novel full of humor and depth that has taken readers around the world by surprise. It was a huge word of mouth hit in the UK. It was #1 on Amazon UK and was HarperCollins UK's best-selling digital debut of 2022. It's perfect for fans of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman and A Man Called Ave. This is one that we're really highlighting for Library Reads consideration because it's just got a great book club feel to it, and it is releasing on January 24th. Next, we have Blood Circus by Camilla Victoire. In this lush and terrifying debut, Camilla Victoire imagines a future where cruelty and spectacle hold the keys to subjugating humans on a ravaged Earth. This is young adult fiction, but it's going to have strong crossover appeal for adult readers. Storm Reed, the award-winning actress from A Wrinkle in Time, who currently appears in the HBO drama series Euphoria, gave it a great blurb. She said the world is fascinating and the story is brilliantly told. And Kirkus Reviews said this socially progressive dystopian adventure with strong world building and suspenseful plotting will appeal to fans of the Hunger Games. And it's releasing on January 31st. Next, we have The Deceit by Sarah Foster. This is a gripping suburban thriller from the best-selling author of Beneath the Shadows and The Hush. Claire hasn't told Lenny about the traumatic events that led her to him, and their carefully built facade ruptures when new neighbors move in who appear to know far more than they should about the couple's troubles. Sarah Foster is a great thriller writer, so we're excited to have this new one from her. And it's releasing on February 7th. Next, we have Stay Sane in an Insane World by Greg Harden. Champions aren't born, they're built. Greg Harden spent over 30 years building them at the University of Michigan, including 400 future professional athletes, 50 NFL first-round draft picks, and 120 Olympians from over 20 countries. He gained national recognition when 60 Minutes Sports profiled him as Michigan's secret weapon. He's worked with star athletes, including Olympic gold medalist Michael Phelps and Tom Brady, who wrote the foreword to the book. He has helped people to deal with all sorts of roadblocks in their lives, and it has given him a unique perspective on life, which he is now ready to share. It will appeal to sports fans, as well as those who are looking for just general self-improvement books. And this one is releasing on March 21st. Then we have just a few new series titles coming up in paperback that I wanted to highlight. The Saint of Thieves by Dana Haynes is book 3 in the St. Nicholas Salvage and Wrecking series. Sycamore Circle by New York Times bestselling author Shelley Shepard Gray is the second novel in her Rumors in Ross County series. And Dempsey by Brian Andrews and Jeffrey Wilson is book 7 in their very popular Tier 1 Thrillers series. And on the next slide, we have some titles that we wanted to call out specifically for library reads. Angeline by Anna Quinn. When Sister Angeline is unwillingly sent to a radical convent, her tragic past resurfaces and her very being is put to the test. This is a great sort of personal thriller. And also The Family Morphowitz by Daniel H. Turtle. This is a gripping Jewish family saga inspired by Ovid's Metamorphosis. And then Daughter Dalloway by Emily France. This is a retelling of Virginia Woolf's classic Mrs. Dalloway from the point of view of the famous socialite's only child, Elizabeth. And finally, we have all of our contact information there. So please reach out if you would like galleys or have any questions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Allison Haberstroh, and I am the marketing specialist at Consortium Book Sales and Distribution. If you're not familiar with Consortium, we're a distributor of over 120 independent publishers from around the world. Next slide. So to start things off, I wanted to quickly call out a few recent highlights from Consortium. We were so thrilled to have 3 National Book Award finalists this year. A New Name from Transit Books, Jawbone from Coffee House Press, both in the translated literature category, and Look at This Blue, also from Coffee House in the poetry category. We also have been inundated with amazing coverage in the 2022 Best of lists, with our publishers being featured as New York Times notable books, plus having been included in the year-end list from The New Yorker, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Reviews, New York Public Library, and Chicago Public Library, just to name a few. And now looking forward with a few of our exciting winter and spring titles. So first up, we have Black Women Writers at Work from Haymarket Books. Long out of print, this is a vital collection edited by Claudia Tate of conversations with Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Gail Jones, and many other Black women writers who changed the scope of Black literature in the 20th century and beyond. Recently, there was a viral tweet from author and Harper's Bazaar staffer Caitlin Greenidge promoting the book and calling it one of the most insightful books about writing and life of all time, which after this spotlight catapulted the book to a top pre-order spot on Bookshop for several weeks in a row. This is definitely one you don't want to miss. Next, we have My Soul Twin from the best-selling author of The Eighth Life, which sold over 500,000 copies worldwide and earned a long listing for the International Booker Prize. Though I do want to quickly mention this new novel is a bit more manageable than the 900 plus pages of The Eighth Life, clocking in at just about 320 pages. In this modern day Wuthering Heights, My Soul Twin is an epic story of forbidden love, the ties that bind us, and whether we can ever truly forget what we leave behind. On the next slide, we're moving on to a debut novel from Southern indie publisher Blair. We have Atomic Family by Sierra Horton McElroy. Inspired by McElroy's real-life family story, this impeccably researched work is the story of a South Carolina family who endures one life-shattering day in 1961 in a town that lies in the shadow of a nuclear bomb plant. This is an enduring and timeless work of environmental fiction and will be for fans of Charlotte McNaughty's Once There Were Wolves and Richard Powers' The Overstory. Next, from the Dallas-based Texan publisher Deep Vellum, who has been making waves recently with their standout works of Ukrainian literature, such as Grey V's by Andrei Kirkov. Here we have Ivan and Phoebe, the English language debut of author Oksana Lutsushina. Set in 1990s Ukraine, this epic novel chronicles the lives of several young people, offering a panoramic view of post-Soviet society and family through social, political, and economic crises. And next, the last book I have for you today is A Cowardly Woman No More by Ellen Cooney, the author of the acclaimed One Night, Two Souls Went Walking. In this new novel, we follow middle-aged Trisha over the course of one fateful day where, after being passed over for a well-earned promotion, she takes an unconventional approach to reclaim her agency in this coming-of-age story. This surprising and quietly dramatic adventure story is infused with Cooney's warm humor and wisdom and will be for fans of Elizabeth Strout and Marilyn Robinson. And next slide. And that is all from me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to check out these titles and Consortium's full catalogs on Edelweiss. I'll drop a few links in the chat for you here in just a second. And feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. And you can always sign up for our Library Express newsletter, which is your weekly dispatch on all the hot news and reviews from Consortium publishers. So thanks so much and have a great day.
Thanks, Allison. Hello, everyone. My name is Anastasia Scott, pronouns she, her, and I'm the sales manager for School and Library at Chronicle Books in San Francisco. So today I have a few recent winter titles as well as some forthcoming books from our spring list. First up is The Third Act by Josh Sapin. This is actually from Princeton Architectural Press, and it just came out 2 weeks ago on November 15th. So does anyone here know someone who is pursuing interesting new ventures instead of traditional retirement? With more than 60 beautiful portrait photographs and profiles of notable people who are redefining conventional retirement and living their most productive and thrilling new chapters later in life, The Third Act celebrates aging in all its grace, excitement, accomplishments, and discovery. So read how well-known celebrities like Alan Alda, Rita Moreno, Gloria Steinem, Jane Fonda, James Clybourne, Robert Redford, and Norman Lear took on new challenges at an age when many people are putting their feet up. Be inspired by the stories of lesser-known figures like Donzella Washington, who became the oldest graduate of A&M University at 80, Andrea Peterson, who fulfilled a lifelong dream of becoming a firefighter at 50, Paul Dillon, who started an incubator for Marine veterans after his business career, Hope Harley, who founded the Bronx Children's Museum after a career at a telecommunications company, and many, many others. It's a super interesting, inspiring read for anyone who's contemplating their next chapter. Next slide. Start More Than You Can Finish by Becky Blades. This is another one that just came out on November 1st. In Start More Than You Can Finish, writer, artist, and entrepreneur Becky Blades offers a powerful new mindset for our modern world. Acting on more ideas makes us happier and reveals our highest creativity. She empowers readers to become startists, initiators with a bias for action and the courage to ignite ideas. This is a practical guide for anyone interested in diving into this philosophy of just trying more things, and it would be a really fun New Year, New You book, especially for my fellow creative folks who make a lot of resolutions, but don't 100% always follow through. If that resonates with you, you might really like this book. Next slide. Moving Through Cancer. This is a paperback release that just came out on November 15th from Dr. Catherine Schmitz. And the author, Dr. Catherine Schmitz, is the Associate Director of Population Scientists at the Penn State Cancer Institute and past president at the American College of Sports Medicine. Her protocols for exercise and cancer care are already being used by several major institutions and practitioners. And this book, now available in paperback, introduces a 21-day program of strength training and exercise for cancer prevention and recovery that will improve your mental and physical health before, during, and after cancer diagnosis and treatment. Groundbreaking program that shows readers how they can use exercise and movement to recover more quickly from surgery, withstand chemotherapy or other drug treatments or radiation with fewer side effects, bounce back to daily life following cancer treatments, prevent the loss of function or fitness due to treatment, return to work more quickly or stay at work through treatment, and protect against late side effects of treatment that come years after diagnosis. It's informative, it's practical, and it explains the science of healing and prevention and delivers a paradigm shifting message for patients, doctors, and caregivers about using exercise to live with and beyond cancer. Next, we have another paperback release, Trust Yourself by Melody Wilding. Do you often feel not good enough? And this one's coming out on January 10th. We've moved into the new year. Do you ever take things too personally or judge yourself too harshly? Maybe you struggle with burnout and setting boundaries. You're highly sensitive and high performing. Being highly attuned to your emotions, environment, and the behavior of others can be the keys to success, but they can also lead to overthinking and burnout. Human behavior expert and executive coach Melody Wilding identifies this problem and gives the nuanced reader profile a name, sensitive strivers. Drawing on the latest research and work with clients, she examines the intersection of sensitivity and achievement and the challenges that come along with it in the workplace, and offers neuroscience-based strategies readers can use to reclaim control of their lives and reach their full potential. This would be a really great read for anyone who struggles with confidence, but's maybe thinking about making a job move in the new year. Next slide, The Pandemic Effect by Blaine Brownell. This is also coming out on January 10th. So after living through a pandemic, I think we all have become very curious about safety protocols. In The Pandemic Effect, 90 leading architects, designers, materials scientists, and health officials reflect on the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic on buildings and cities and propose solutions to safeguard the built environment from future pandemics, viruses, and contagious diseases on every scale, from surfaces to society. These inoculation strategies are organized into 5 chapters. Histories offers an overview of past pandemics and prior architectural approaches. Inside Outside addresses the roles of building envelopes and mechanical systems in improving indoor environmental quality. Interventions consist of contemporary methods for direct prevention and control. New strategies consist of various architectural analyses and proposals for design changes. And the public realm considers the urban landscape and related social questions. This broad collection of perspectives explores the transformations currently happening in the built environment and offers design strategies to limit the severity of subsequent pandemics. But fingers crossed, we've met our quota for a while. This is just good for anyone who loves a good science-based read. And I think we're all really curious about kind of the effects and how the pandemic has influenced us. Next, we have Recipe for Disaster. Lots of disaster themes here this morning, by Allison Riley. This one's coming out on March 14th. And this is just for anyone who loves really, really good food writing. So Recipe for Disaster is a collection of stories and recipes from a veritable who's who from the worlds of food, music, art, literature, activism, fashion, and pop culture about finding comfort in food, surviving the unthinkable, and living to tell about both. So discover how getting dumped led to author Samantha Irby's rejection chicken. Comedian Sarah Silverman tells the power of the humble pinwheel cookie that got her through bouts of crippling childhood depression. Culinary legend Alice Waters reflects on how a perfectly dressed salad has carried her and her chosen family through loneliness and uncertainty. It's part cookbook, part candid confessions. This book of good food for bad times reminds us that even the worst days yield something worth sharing. Next slide, we have a couple interiors that we can flip through.
Anastasia, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off.
That's okay. For more books, just check us out online. Too much for 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Next up, we have Jasenia Corporan.
Hi, everyone.
Hachette.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jasenia Corporan, and I'm lucky to be a part of the Hachette library team with Annie and Melissa. I'm excited to be here with you all and to present. Next slide, please. Great. Next, we have What Happened to Ruthie Ramirez. This is an exciting debut novel from Puerto Rican writer Claire Jimenez. It's set in Staten Island, and it follows the Ramirez women after 13-year-old middle child Ruthie disappears after practice without a trace. It left the Ramirez family scarred and scrambling. But one day her older sister, Jessica, 12 years later, is watching a raunchy reality show, and she sees someone that resembles Ruthie. And you could only imagine. She's like, oh my God, it's her. So she writes to her younger sister, Nina, and they plan this trip to go and go to the raunchy reality show to try to get this maybe Ruthie character. Their mom tags along, and what we see is a road trip that kind of brings the three women together to finally face their past and come to terms with what has happened to their family in the past 12 years. And, you know, to come to terms with whether or not, even if it doesn't end up being Ruthie, if they're going to be okay. It's very haunting, it's extremely funny, surprisingly, and it speaks to family dynamics when dealing with loss, as well as the public's obsession with missing and murdered girls, but highlights their silence when those girls come from brown and black, black communities. It's bold, authentic, haunting, but at the same time funny, and Claire's a great new voice. Next slide. The Bird Has Flown by Susanna Hoffs. Yes, that's Susanna Hoffs of The Vanguard has written a rom-com. Meet our heroine, Jane Starr, a failure at her music career. She had a hit single 10 years ago, but nothing since. She has unfortunately not had much luck in love either. She is running away from LA to England to get away from it all and regroup. Seated next to her on the plane, none other than Tom Hardy. Nope, not that Tom Hardy, but Tom Hardy, the Oxford professor of literature. Their will they, won't they romance hits the same sweet spot as Daisy Jones and the Six and Bridget Jones's Diary. Much of this novel takes place in Britain, which Susanna captures vividly, and we think this is a great pick for library reads lists. Next slide. Next, we have The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. The Foxglove King is a new romantic epic fantasy trilogy filled with dark magic, court intrigue, and a love triangle, perfect for fans of Leigh Bardugo, Holly Black, and Sarah J. Maas. Hannah is a star. Her debut, For the Wolf, was a bestseller with TikTok appeal. Her fans are devoted and constantly share their love across social media. And the best part is galleys are in. Next slide. At the turn of the 20th century, Purbhai, a teenage boy looking for work, is taken from his village in India to labor on the East African Railway for the British. One day, Purbhai commits an act to ensure his survival that will haunt him forever and reverberate across his family's future for years to come. This novel is told cross-generational from the point of view of 4 generations. It speaks to the inheritance and the stories we receive from our ancestors and what we choose to hand down from one generation to the next, and what we decide to choose to build our own legacies. Next slide. Taking inspiration from his mother's own Red Cross service, Luis has delivered an overlooked story of women's heroism in World War II. Good Night, Irene follows the friendship of Dorothy and Irene, who both served as donut dollies during World War II, a group of elite women who served coffee and donuts and offer camaraderie and a taste of home to the soldiers before they go to battle. It might seem like an easy position or a job, but it's extremely hard, and they were right at the front line scene and extremely in danger. Luis Alberto Urrea worked 30 years on this novel, and he also traversed with his wife throughout Europe to make it as authentic as possible. Next slide. It's Always Been Ours by Jessica Wilson is an urgent book about Black women's health. Wilson is a specialist in eating disorders and one of the fewer than 3% of registered dietitians that are Black. She has seen firsthand how Black women have been left out of the conversation about diet culture, health, and wellness. In It's Always Been Ours, Jessica takes a powerful look into how whiteness and capitalism has shaped how Black women are viewed and treated, and how wellness and healthism perpetuates harm. She tackles everything from the strong Black woman trope to Lizzo and body positivity. Next slide. Sink is Joseph Earl Thomas's stunning, gun-wrenching debut coming-of-age memoir. In searing prose, Joseph guides readers through the cruelty that defined his circumstances and childhood in Philadelphia, and lets bare the depths of his loneliness while illuminating the reprieve that was geek culture. It's extremely dark at times, but we see how games and Pokemon games and video games really helped Joseph come into his own within a place that was telling him that he was so unlike all these other boys. Is extremely an amazing read, and people we're getting great reviews, and it's early blurs have called it brilliant and brilliantly different. A stunning literary debut and an unforgettable story that dares to expand the possibilities of Black male identity. Next slide. Next, we have Truth and Repair by Judith L. Herman. Herman's work has drawn immense praise and recognition over her lifetime. The publication of her first work, Mute in 30 Years, is a landmark event, and drawing on her decades of trauma research and work with patients, listening to trauma survivors. Herman knows that the most important step toward repair is an acknowledgement of the crime and an apology for it. This vital new work is a powerful manifesto, and it will have profound implications for the psychiatry and social science professions. Next slide.
Jasenia, I'm going to have to stop you. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Loberg, and I'm on the publicity team at Soho Press. If you're not familiar with us, we have 3 imprints. We publish award-winning crime fiction under our Soho Crime imprint, literary fiction under Soho Press, and YA under our Soho Teen imprint. A lot of great titles for you today, and they're all available for request on NetGalley and Edelweiss. So go ahead and click those request buttons or email me with any questions. First up, from our Soho Crime imprint in March, we have Night Flight to Paris by Cara Black, and this is one of our biggest books of 2023. Cara Black is known for her popular Parisian Amy Leduc PI investigations, but in 2020, Cara took her writing in a new direction with a standalone novel, 3 Hours in Paris, a gripping World War II historical thriller inspired by a real moment in history. In June 1940, when Paris fell to the Nazis, Hitler spent a total of 3 hours in the city before abruptly leaving, and to this day, nobody knows why. In the novel, American markswoman Kate Reese tackles the crucial task of assassinating none other than Hitler himself, and she misses the shot, but spoiler alert, she does survive to return in this exciting sequel, Night Flight to Paris. In Night Flight to Paris, Kate Reese is once again pulled from her quiet life into the middle of World War II action in a 3-pronged mission where the stakes just keep getting higher, as she must deliver a forbidden package, assassinate a German operative who could turn the war against the Allies, and rescue a British agent who once saved her life. Just like 3 Hours in Paris, Night Flight to Paris delivers a heart-pounding thrill ride perfect for fans of Alan First, Frederick Forsyth, and James Grady. The narrative will keep you on the edge of your seat, but at the same time, you get a profound look at Kate Reese's character. She's an intelligent, resilient farm girl turned war hero who's determined not to let her past or her trauma slow her down in any way. If you love action-packed thrillers, World War II novels, reimagined history, espionage, and feminist novels, this book will knock your socks off. Next slide, please. In April, we have Ozark Dogs by Eli Craner. Eli writes gritty Southern Gothic noir at its finest, exemplified by his debut novel, Don't Know Tough, which was like a noir Friday Night Lights that came out earlier this year to great acclaim. Eli's from Arkansas and writes about his home state in a distinctly Southern voice that welcomes you into these dark, gritty, even violent stories enmeshed in small town life. Ozark Dogs has already been lauded by Megan Abbott, as you'll see on screen, who says it's thrillingly told, deeply wrenching, not to be missed. And Brendan Slocum, author of The Violent Conspiracy, quote, could not put it down. Ozark Dogs is about Vietnam War veteran Jeremiah Fitzgerald, who raises his granddaughter Joanna as his own in their Ozark junkyard, which effectively doubles as an armory. When the Ledfords, a family of meth dealers and white supremacists, kidnaps Joanna over a long-standing blood debt between their families, Jeremiah desperately searches for his granddaughter. This is an immersive, thrilling story full of raw emotion, and it's inspired by the true story of a double murder that took place in a junkyard in Eli's hometown, which he goes into in the author's note. Ozark Dogs is Southern noir at its finest and about the lengths people will go to for their family and their honor. Hand this to fans of David Joy, S.A. Cosby, and Wiley Cash. Next, please. Finally, from our literary imprint, in February, we have Black Dove by Colin McAdam. Fans of Stranger Things, John Darnielle, and Emily St. John Mandel, this one's for you. Colin is a Canadian author with bold writing chops, and his previous novels, including A Beautiful Truth, have all been highly acclaimed and nominated for or won awards. Black Dove is an imaginative, immersive literary experience that combines sci-fi, philosophy, fantasy, coming of age, horror, and suspense in a beautifully written story about grief, single parenting, bullying, relationships, and so much more. 12-year-old Oliver is haunted by the ghost of his alcoholic mother, but he finds solace in the impromptu tales spun by his father, who's a writer. Meanwhile, Oliver is also struggling with bullying, and as he's running away one night, he ends up in a junk shop full of oddities and wondrous creatures emerging from the basement, and he begins working for the owner of the shop there. Seeking some form of distraction and healing, Oliver joins the shop owner in experimenting with dangerous forms of genetic editing. And what follows is an enthralling, magical story that is both tender and nightmarish as it explores storytelling, heartbreak, and the end of childhood. Black Dove is lyrical, mythical, and just unsettling enough to keep you transfixed through this imaginative literary journey. And next slide. Those are all that I have for you. My email is up on screen and I'll drop it in the chat as well. Please feel free to write to me directly with any questions or to request on Kelly and Edelweiss. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. It's Lainey from HarperCollins. Glad to be here. On the next slide, just a quick little wrap up. Everything is on librarylovefest.com if you want to know more. And the next slide, we'll get into the titles. So we have After Anne by Logan Steiner. I'm very excited for this one, calling all Anne of Green Gables fans. You're going to love to know more about the beloved creator, Lucy Maud Montgomery. If you're not an Anne of Green Gables fan, that's totally fine. You'll just like a really great historical fiction and learn about a wonderful historical person. So not too long ago, it came out that Ella Montgomery actually took her own life, but her family covered it up. And that came as a very big surprise to me and to all of her fans. No one knew this. And so in this book, we kind of see everything that leads up to that. She lost her mother really young, and Maud moved in with her grandmother to take care of her. She really had dreams of creating beauty and joy and kind of couldn't keep the stories within. And so she sat down and she put a book to paper. And as it's being published, she has to kind of decide, is she going to go into marriage and have kids, or is she going to be an author and stay at home? She knows that either way, one's going to take a back seat. She can't really have both. And so we see her make this. She grapples with it. It's hard. And then some of the family members later on who become emotionally distant, she loses family members. There's some romance. There's a self-made success story. There's a lovely little pieces of Anne all the way through. You're going to love it. And you'll learn more about a woman who made great contributions to Canadian literature and tourism. And next we have A Living Remedy by Nicole Chung. This is a new memoir from the national bestseller author of All You Can Ever Know. That was a memoir about how she was born from a Korean family, and then she was put up for adoption and raised by a white family. So this new memoir seems like a little quick right after that, but so much happened in a short time. She lost both of her parents very shortly together, right as COVID was kind of hitting. She was separated from them. Her father was only 67, and then he died from health issues that she knew, like financial instability growing up and a lack of access to healthcare really contributed to. And then her mother, like a year later, was diagnosed with cancer. So as she's going through all this, she's seeing the world going through a lot of loss itself. It's heart-wrenching, it's poetic. And we all know someone who's dealing with loss if you aren't yourself. And this is going to be a really special book. It will bring you to tears, but it's really beautiful and an ode to these parents that brought her so much. The next book is 14 Days by Margaret Atwood. Well, it's edited by Margaret Atwood. It's, as you can see, there's crazy amount of talent in this book. A lot of stories that are interconnected. It all takes place 1 week into COVID. After the shutdown, tenants of a Lower East Side apartment building in Manhattan have begun to gather on rooftops and tell stories. And each passing night, they more and more gather, and they find this sense of community. It's really showing the surprising narrative within stories to show like how all of the loss and suffering really did bring some communities together through all of this. Crazy names listed here. I mean, just a few more. R.L. Stein, oh, that's on there. Luis Alberto Ria. Let's see, James Shapiro. Like, there are crazy amounts of talent in this book, so I hope you pick up this one. Next is The Unfortunates by J.K. Chukwu. So this is a debut that was positioned to be a really big breakout on the literary scene. It's smart, it's comedic and edgy. It's a funny queer debut. It confronts a lot of issues in the feminist Black and queer spaces. It was described to me, which kind of blew me away, of queer Black Holden Caulfield. I was like, sign me up. And so in this, we see a woman who feels a lot of failure in her life. She doesn't feel Nigerian enough for her family. Her love life is non-existent, and fellow Black classmates at her university are vanishing or dying, and she doesn't really know. So she kind of puts all of this pain in a thesis that she's going to address to the powerful university committee, and maybe she can help with her community of BIPOC women, and they can not go out without a fight. And then just quickly, last, I wanted to bring this last book, Good Fortune by C.K. Chow. This is a modern Jane Austen Pride and Prejudice retelling, which I don't know that I have to say much more than that, but it's set in early 2000s Chinatown, all the wit, romance, and incisive social commentary of the original, yet reinvigorated. And it's going to be a really fun read. The author is a publishing insider, smart and fun and great for book clubs. Yeah, we always love hanging out with Elizabeth more. And then also, I will put a link in the chat. We're going to have a February 14th buzz with way more titles than this. So I hope you can sign up and join us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Margaret Coffey from Sourcebooks. Greetings from very chilly Chicago. I'm looking forward to talking to you about some of my favorite upcoming spring titles. Please visit our website for discussion guides and newsletter sign up. Visit Edelweiss and NetGalley for e-galleys. Next slide. Starting off with our landmark fiction line, I hope you've had a chance to read some of our wonderful recent backlist landmark titles. Circe meets Circe Lancaster in this powerful retelling of the story of Clytemnestra by debut novelist Constanza Casati. You're born to a king, but marry a tyrant. You stand helplessly as he sacrifices your child to placate the gods. You watch him wage war on a foreign shore and comfort yourself with violent thoughts of his death. You play the part, fooling enemies who deny you justice. Slowly, you plot. But when your husband returns in triumph, what then? Acceptance or vengeance? Death follows both. So you bide your time and force the gods' hands in this wretched game of retribution. This is Clytemnestra, the most notorious heroine of the ancient world. Next slide. The Last Carolina Girl is a debut novel set in 1935 North Carolina against the backdrop of a recently formed state eugenics board. This emotionally charged novel follows one girl fighting for her family, her future, and her own place to stand in a world that doesn't always value the wild spirit of a Carolina girl. Perfect for readers of Where the Crawdads Sing and If the Creek Don't Rise. Next slide. And now moving on to our nonfiction line. Next slide. Bill Hammack, the engineer guy on YouTube, takes us on a whirlwind tour of how humans built the world we know today in the things we make. From the arches of cathedrals to the modern soda can, Hamak explains the golden rule of thumb that underlies every new technological advance and creative solution that leads us one step closer to a better, more functional world. Next. About some happily ever after with our Casa romance line. Next slide. Radiant Sin is the fourth installment of Katie Roberts' Dark Olympus series. The New York Times and USA Today best-selling sexy modern-day deconstruction of our favorite Greek myths. No one knows intrigue like Apollo, so when a new enemy takes up residence in Olympus, Zeus turns to him for answers. But Apollo will need someone comfortable working in the shadows to play the part of his partner turned fiance, someone like the last daughter of a fallen house, Cassandra Kataki. What could possibly go wrong? Next slide. If you enjoyed boyfriend material and husband material, you'll love Glitterland, the first in Alexis Hall's Lambda Literary Award-winning series Spires, which was previously available only in ebook format. Ash Winters was once the golden boy of the English literary scene, but mental illness has dragged him into a cycle of self-destruction. A chance meeting with brassy Essex-born Darian Taylor may be the first step Ash needs to rebuild his life, if he's able to let go of the class prejudice and dangerous negative self-image that threatens to derail their relationship. Next slide. The readers of Broken Wheel recommends meets the bookish life of Nina Hill in The Lonely Hearts Club. This charming, hilarious, and moving uplit novel is about the way books bring lonely souls together. Librarian Sloane Parker swears she isn't lonely, but she lives for the moment. Old curmudgeon Arthur storms into her library. When he's injured, Sloane immediately packs up an armful of books and makes a house call, starting an impulsive book club that will change their lives and others forever. Next slide. Indulge in the high heat dark fantasy of our upcoming Bloom Books titles. Next slide. Queen of Myth and Monsters is the next book in an epic fantasy series, Adrian and Isolde, by best-selling beloved author and former librarian, Scarlett St. Clair. Isolde and Adrian have finally found a balance between them, but just as their love seems to be on solid ground, the machinations of two opposing goddesses have them fighting for their love and their lives. This extremely high heat novel is available December 20th. And next, from best-selling author Lucy Score, returning to Knockabout Virginia in Things We Hide from the Light, following the fan favorite Things We Never Got Over. This is about Knox's brother, Nash. He's still reeling from a gunshot wound. Once charming Nash is plagued by nightmares and panic attacks. Luckily, fierce and sassy Lena is the perfect quick fix solution to Nash's brooding, until she realizes there's nothing temporary about Nash's interest in her. Next slide. A quick peek at some of our upcoming Bloom titles from our best-selling authors. And the last slide, just a reminder again to visit our website to look at our other titles. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays. Thanks again to Annie for all that she has done. Have a great day, and over to Dina.
Thanks, Margaret. Hi, everyone. I'm Dina Sherman, the School and Library Marketing Director for Disney Publishing Worldwide. And I am very excited to introduce some of our upcoming titles across all our imprints. For those who don't know, National Geographic is now part of Disney, so we're thrilled to have their titles, and we have some new imprints as well. Next slide. Okay, so first up, from our newest imprint, Anscape, is Love and Justice. Maya Moore was a WNBA player, literally at the top of her game, when she decided to pause her career to help a family friend overturn his wrongful conviction and prison sentence. Jonathan Irons was convicted at age 16 with very flimsy evidence connecting him to the crime, and Maya and her family worked really hard to get him released. So in the book, we see them meet, eventually fall in love, and decide to continue their social justice work together after his release. And if you haven't seen the clip of them announcing their marriage to Robin Roberts on Good Morning America, look it up. There won't be a dry eye. It's a total tearjerker. It's beautiful. Next slide. 1,000 Trails, 5,000 Ideas is the latest entry in America's #1 best-selling travel series, which covers 100 trails across the United States and Canada. The chapters are divided by region of the country, and with each entry, you'll find a big picture sidebar that highlights facts, figures, and it has a special section in the last chapter that also has more trails, 68 more trails for anyone who wants to go beyond North America. Next. So anyone who's ever sat at a bar watching a game or tuned into sports radio knows that in addition to the game itself, fans love to discuss stats. Yes, I'm looking at you, Chris Vicari. Perhaps no one in America understands that better well, maybe than Chris, than Broadcast Hall of Famer and face of ESPN, Mike Greeny Greenberg, the host of ESPN's Get Up. So in Got Your Number, Greeny's short but persuasive essays will share which athletes he believes own each number 1 through 100. And I'm not going to start any fights here, so I'm not going to tell any of you what they are. Next slide. Possibility is your superpower. Marvel Studios president of VFX, post-production and animation, Victoria Alonso. You see her name at the end of every Marvel movie. She takes you on a deep dive into her years climbing the Hollywood ladder. Having spent the last 15 plus years bringing relatable superheroes to the screen and often being the lone woman in the rooms where big decisions are made, she has a simple secret to share. You don't need a cape, you don't need a hammer, you don't need a shield. Your superpower is your voice, and your voice will create change for yourself, for society, and for those you love. The author is donating all of her proceeds from this book to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, and we're going to simultaneously publish a Spanish edition of the book. Next slide. So next, I want to talk about some cookbooks that we have coming out in 2023, starting with what is sure to be a big hit, the official Disney Parks Cookbook. This cookbook enchants with 101 tried and true recipes from across Disneyland and Walt Disney World, plus aboard the Disney Cruise Line ships and other special resorts. I have not seen the list of recipes, so I do not know if Dole Whip is in there, but I'm hoping. Plant Love Kitchen is an easy to use guide from nutritionist and popular food blogger, Marissa Moore. According to the latest scientific research, eating with a plant slant and focusing on whole foods is key to a longer, healthier life. In this approachable guide, Moore breaks down the benefits of a flexitarian diet for your health, disease prevention, and overall well-being. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, but it's an adaptable method that will leave you feeling younger, stronger, mentally fit, and healthy. And in the National Geographic television series, Uncharted, Chef Gordon Ramsay travels to some of the most remote locations on Earth in search of culinary inspiration, epic adventures, and cultural experiences. So now fans can experience this journey in this beautifully illustrated collection with 75 recipes and revealing insight in cultures and foodways of destinations from Peru to Louisiana. Next slide. So you can't talk about cookbooks and health without including the blue zones, places around the world where higher percentages of people enjoy remarkably long, full lives, and Dan Buettner. Time to the worldwide debut of his highly anticipated Netflix series. The Complete Blue Zones is a beautifully illustrated and informative guide to help you live to 100. And also just a reminder that the Blue Zones American Kitchen, which has 100 new recipes, comes out next month. Next slide. So lastly, I just want to quickly share some of the great new titles from our Disney Editions imprint that are coming out as the Walt Disney Company celebrates our 100th anniversary. So the official Walt Disney Quote Book is a collection of quotations from Walt Disney himself that range from the well-known to the obscure, gleaned from publications, productions, and interviews over the breadth of his career. The Story of Disney, 100 Years of Wonder is the official companion to the touring exhibition showcasing the company's history and legacy, which is premiering in the United States at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia in February 2023. And lastly, we have a new commemorative edition of Walt Disney, an American Original. This was originally published in 1984, and the new edition has been refreshed with new introductions, new 32-page photo insert, and rare behind-the-scenes photos, and new endnotes. And next slide. That's it for me. These are all the places you can find us online. We do have titles on NetGalley and Edelweiss. A lot of these aren't up yet, but should be going up soon. And feel free to reach out to me if you need anything else. And I also just want to echo what everyone else has said. And thank you, Annie, for everything you've done for us. I'm glad we'll still be working with you, but I know things will be in great hands with Emily and Lainey. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Camargo from MacMillan. First off, I'll just go quickly through some housekeeping. Here's all the places you can find us on the internet. Definitely check us out. Next slide, please. Many of the titles I'll be talking about today already are or will be available to read on Edelweiss. If you're not already whitelisted for automatic downloads, just shoot me an email at this email address on your screen and I will hook you up. Next slide. We also have a really fun series of buzzes that we do every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern called Happy Half Hour. And if you want to hear us talk about forthcoming adult and YA titles with some other fun random banter, definitely tune in. And now on to the books. I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some exciting debuts that are coming out next year, starting with If We're Being Honest by Kat Shook. Set in Georgia, it is about a family after the death of their beloved father and grandfather The family gathers for his funeral, and when their grandfather's best friend steps up to the mic to speak, secrets start coming out and they are left to cope with some unexpected drama. The overall message is that while no one can break your heart like your family can, there is also no one better to put you back together. If we're being honest, is perfect for fans of We Are the Brennans, all adults here, and heard it in a love song. Next up is House of Cotton by Monica Brashears. This is a stunning contemporary Black Southern Gothic debut about what it means to be a poor woman in the God-fearing South in the age of OnlyFans. Magnolia Brown is 19 years old, broke, and effectively an orphan. One night, while working at her dead-end gas station job, a mysterious, slick stranger named Cotton walks in and offers to turn Magnolia's luck around. And while things start to look up, Magnolia discovers there's a lot more at stake than just her rent. Darkly funny and sharply poignant, this will be great for fans of Raven Leilani's Luster, Britt Bennett's The Vanishing Half, or even shows like Euphoria and Insecure. Next is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This is a riveting debut told through the stories of 3 connected women over 5 centuries, exploring witchcraft and female intuition. Wayward is part historical novel, but it has a very fresh and modern feel to it as it explores feminist themes through the lens of witchcraft and filled with literary writing, vivid imagery, and lyrical prose. This is a true page turner that is as readable as a high stakes thriller, but with the urgency that will call to book clubs, and will be perfect for fans of The Lost Apothecary, Hour of the Witch, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Next is He Said He Would Be Late. This is a fresh domestic suspense debut that tackles postpartum, motherhood, and infidelity. It's the story of a wife and mother who seemingly has a perfect life, but when she sneaks a look at her husband's phone and sees a text that was definitely not meant for her eyes, she starts to second guess everything that she thought was so wonderful. So she decides she has to get to the bottom of it and wants the truth no matter the cost, but along the way learns that not everything is as it seems. Next up is You Know Her by Megan Jennett. This is a lush, savage Southern Gothic debut that is Killing Eve meets My Sister the Serial Killer. It follows a bartender who discovers a fondness and an aptitude for ridding the world of would-be bad men. She forms an uneasy camaraderie with the new police officer assigned to the case over shared frustrations and experiences. And despite their tenuous friendship, the cop begins to suspect that something is not quite right. But will she be able to convince her colleagues, or will they keep laughing off the idea that the serial killer haunting their little town is a woman? This is a crackling, atmospheric cat and mouse thriller that probes the boundaries of female friendship and the deadly consequences when frustration ferments into rage. Think the movie Promising Young Woman, but with a heroine who actually goes the distance. Next up is The Instructor by T.R. Hendricks. This is a debut military thriller that introduces retired Marine Derek Harrington, who is barely scraping by teaching the basics of wilderness survival. When one of his jobs takes an unexpected turn, Derek soon finds himself in deep cover, deep in the woods, embroiled with a fringe group that is led by this charismatic leader who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. And Derek will have to race against time to stop what could very well be the first attack of a domestic terrorist cell. The author draws on his own military career for an authentic, atmospheric start to a new series for anyone who enjoys Jack Reacher, Brad Taylor, or the shows Survivor Man or Man vs. Wild. Next is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. This is the full-length debut of an award-winning novella author. It's a fresh take on a classic sci-fi coming-of-age novel that follows Kier, one of the best warriors of her generation, and she's left to take humanity's revenge into her own hands. A thrilling queer space opera all about found family and the wreckage of war. Some Desperate Glory is a mix of the adventure and Gideon the Ninth, set in a world inspired by Mass Effect, and has already received a star review from Library Journal. And the last title from me is The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland. This is a suspenseful and enchanting debut that follows a lonely woman who runs an elite art school for children in upstate New York. Long ago, her grandfather decided to make her immortal like himself. And the arrival of a gifted child from a troubled home in the current time forces her to confront whether her life is a gift or a curse. I got really strong Invisible Life of Addie LaRue vibes reading this. It's a very moving, emotional story, sort of couched in this semi-fantastical setting. I would definitely hand this to readers who love contemporary fiction with elements of suspense and fantasy like Interview with the Vampire and Roundhouse, but also readers drawn to Gothic atmospheric writing like The Secret History. And lastly, next slide, Here's all of our information again. Please feel free to reach out and follow us for even more fun goodies. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kate McManus, and I'm with PRH Library Marketing. I'm really excited to share with you 4 of our upcoming titles. We have a varied group of with genres ranging from thriller to retellings of classic Greek myths. So I'll start with the latter. Oh, and our Book and Author Festival is next week, so please join us there. Next up. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So I'm going to start with Phaedra. Debut novelist Lord Shepherdson offers a powerful feminist retelling of Phaedra, the sister of the Minotaur, in her unyielding quest for justice. When Phaedra is assaulted by her stepson, the men of Athens gather to decide the fate of her attacker, while the women, who have no vote in the matter, have to gather in the shadows. Phaedra offers a stunning story of how truth bends under the weight of patriarchy, but can be broken down by the force of one woman's bravery. This is perfect for fans of Madeline Miller and her novel Circe and The Song of Achilles. This is out January 10th, 2023. Can I have the next slide, please? Next up, I have A Spell of Good Things, a story of modern Nigeria and 2 families caught in the riptides of wealth, power, romantic obsession, and political corruption. This is from Ayobami Adebayo, the celebrated author of Stay With Me. Because his father has lost his job, Eniola has begun to do odd jobs for the local tailor and even begs when times are difficult, but he has dreams of something more. On the other hand, Waraola is the perfect child of a wealthy family, but is now an exhausted young doctor in the first year of practice. Waraola and Eniola's lives become intertwined as Adebayo paints an image of class divides and how humanity can persevere even within the most rigid class system. Next up. Next, we have Jojo Moyes' new novel, best-selling author of The Giver of Stars, and she brings us Someone Else's Shoes. This is a story of mess-ups, mix-ups, and second chances. Nisha has grown accustomed to her lavish, globe-trotting lifestyle when her husband abruptly announces that he wants a divorce and cuts her off. In no time at all, Nisha realizes that she quite literally doesn't even have the shoes she was once standing in. This is because Sam, a struggling mother, has accidentally taken Nisha's gym bag and the crocodile Louboutins within. These shoes give Sam a renewed sense of self-confidence as she realizes the one thing she can change in her situation is herself. We all know Jojo Moyes has been such a hot author recently, and I can definitely see Someone Else's Shoes fitting in seamlessly to all of her fan shelves. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we have All That Is Mine I Carry With Me by William Landay, acclaimed author of Defending Jacob. One afternoon in 1975, 10-year-old Miranda Larkin comes home from school to find the house eerily quiet. Her mother is missing, but her purse is in its usual spot in the hallway, and there seems to be no sign of struggle. Everyone in their community and further is asking the same question: what happened to Jane Larkin? Her husband, Dan Larkin, is obviously the main suspect in her disappearance. Cut to 2 decades later, Jane's remains are finally found, and the investigation is rekindled. Her children, now grown, are forced to choose sides. Is their father guilty or innocent? Will they stand with him or against him? This is Landay's first book since Defending Jacob, so this is an eagerly awaited title for all crime fiction fans. And that is all from me today. Thank you all so much for joining us, and yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today and for everyone who's still hanging on. I'm Katie Vaughn. I'm the new Assistant Marketing Manager for Bloomsbury USA's Adult Trade Team. I've dropped our Google form link in the chat so you can easily find the books that I mentioned on NetGalley and Edelweiss and request your review copies. So please feel free to check that out. But now we'll just jump right into the first slide. In January, we have I Saw Death Coming, which is a heart-wrenching re-examination of the struggle for survival in the Reconstruction era South. Kidada E. Williams is an expert on the effects of racist violence in African-American history, and she combines archival research, direct testimony, and new psychological findings on trauma to consider the lasting effects of attacks upon formerly enslaved people. Also in January, we have Decent People by the Center for Fiction's first Nobel Prize-winning author, Deshaun Charles Winslow. This is a sweeping novel of a Black community reeling from a triple homicide in 1970s North Carolina. It's a literary mystery shaped by race, money, and LGBTQ+ themes, with an incredibly likable female protagonist whose fiance happens to be the primary suspect. And both this novel and I Saw Death Coming hit shelves just in time for Black History Month in February. Then at the end of January, we have The Incredible Reckoning by V, formerly known as Eve Ensler, the Tony Award-winning and best-selling author of The Vagina Monologues. Reckoning is an inspiring collection of work drawn from V's lifetime journals, chronicling her life as a writer and activist, as well as our country's life and the ways in which we must reckon with our personal and political pasts. It's a PW Top 10 memoir of the season with glowing starred reviews from PW and Booklist, which call it as provocative as it is intense and sure to ignite passionate discussion. And then in February, we have The Big Myth by the best-selling authors of Merchants of Doubt. In this new book, they offer a profound and startling history of one of America's most tenacious and destructive false ideas, the magic of the marketplace. It's perfect for readers of blockbuster works of economic history like The Deficit Myth and Winners Take All, and Dark Money author Jane Mayer calls it an urgently needed political analysis. Then on the next slide, we have A Day of Fallen Night by the New York Times bestselling author of The Priory of the Orange Tree, Samantha Shannon. This epic prequel to Priory already has sensational blurbs and so many readers clamoring for advanced copies. Booklist says that Priory devotees and newcomers are in for a treat, and PW calls it a masterful standalone prequel that series fans and any reader looking for queer norm fantasy will be thrilled by in their 2-starred reviews. Then on the next slide, we have The 5 Sorrowful Mysteries of Andy Africa. Crackling with energy, this tragicomic debut novel provides a stunning lens into contemporary African life, the complicity of the West, and the impossible challenges of coming of age in a turbulent world. Andy Aziza, nicknamed Andy Africa, is supremely lovable, and his story will resonate for readers of every stripe and will make you laugh as much as you cry. And on the next slide, we have a book that is already out, but in light of all the Oscar buzz surrounding the new movie, we wanted to bring Women Talking back to your attention. The star-studded film hits theaters this January, and we expect lots of renewed reader interest and think this will be a big conversation starter and a popular book club pick going forward. And then this title on the next slide technically doesn't come out until June, but we just had to tell you about Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epig. This hugely ambitious, sweeping debut novel blends historical fiction, modern questions around gender and trauma, and beautiful writing for an unputdownable reading experience about a legendary Chinese pirate queen. We expect huge celebrity book club potential here and also have our eyes on the June library reads list for this one. That deadline is May 1st, and we would be thrilled if you were to nominate. So if you are at all interested in this one, please check out that Google form in the chat or email me and let me know. And finally, on the next slide, we have all of these fantastic titles on deck as well. Tell Me Good Things is an intimate memoir from the best-selling author of the Grantchester series, James Runcie, which PW's starred review calls a poignant elegy to his beloved and recently departed wife. Sell Us the Rope portrays a young Stalin in London and is perfect for fans of historical fictionalizations like Wolf Hall, and PW's starred review calls it stellar, sardonic, and superb. A Table Full of Love is the next cookbook from Skye McAlpine, the popular author of A Table for Friends. Blue Hunger is a work in translation from one of Italy's most electrifying voices and is a taboo-demolishing story of queer love and obsession set in Shanghai. And finally, Last House Before the Mountain is a spellbinding, internationally best-selling, multi-generational family saga set in a fractured rural village in World War I Austria, perfect for fans of Atonement and The Lost Daughter. And on the very last slide, that is it for us. Thank you so much for listening and for being here today. If there's anything I can do for you, if you have any questions, or if you just want to pop in and say hi, my inbox is open, so please feel free to reach out anytime. And please do take a look at the Google form in the chat. I'll drop it again for everybody to check out. So thank you so much, and thank you, Annie.
Well, that's it from all of us. Wouldn't it be great if we could just take the rest of the year off and read? Read! This is the link to our Edelweiss catalog. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here today, and to my wonderful colleagues. We all wish you a peaceful holiday season, a bright 2023. We hope to see some of you in person in the coming year. And we are grateful that you like to participate in these because we love doing them. Thank you. Take care.